I want to talk a bit about something I'm going to call the mythic wilderness. There are often references, especially in old school gaming circles and old school materials, to the mythic underworld, talking about the dungeon in a way that gives the dungeon more of a space and being than just a physical location. It's the reason why monsters can always see in the dark in old school dungeons, the reason why doors will slam shut and jam against you but might open for enemies. What does it mean precisely? Well, we're not told exactly, but the concept is that the dungeon is not just a physical space. It is a mythic, metaphysical space. In terms of the wilderness, no, we don't get any of that in any of the old school rules, or even I would say in the new school rules. We really look at the wilderness as this in between, but one that exists really in the physical space. It is a place where creatures live. It is a place where travelers pass through. It is a place that adventurers explore, but it's not given any more weight than that. And I think this is a reason why the wilderness can cause issues, because whereas we can use tools to look at a dungeon, say the 5-room dungeon, for example, and try to think about in a thematic, metaphysical sense, what is that journey through the dungeon like? When we look at the wilderness, if we don't wish to take it at face value and exploration, we don't see much value in it. It's just that thing that you skip over, that, oh, we're going to roll some dice and go the next day and move on to the next point on the map. And it's there to be a scary place. Maybe it's there to show the vastness of my world that I've created. Maybe it's there to highlight some lore, but that's about it. But I want to change that. I want to look at giving the wilderness some mythic overtones, some mythic themes, some mythic significance. And I think this will help with when you're running the wilderness in your games. If you find that, oh boy, I've got some forest and this is boring because we've been doing forest and I don't have anything really to add to it, maybe some kind of mythic rigging behind the scenes will help you differentiate one piece of forest for the next. Might help give you ideas, some inspiration in how to make this particular patch of forest different than some other patch of forest, or this grasslands different from some other grasslands, and maybe really look to creating a mythic patchwork of locations so that your wilderness might resemble some of the places that in culture, in fiction, in literary readings that we may have done really stand out to us, like Middle-earth, like Oz, another place, any other place, Wonderland, for example, where each location, each area seems to have more to it, seems to have more of a spiritual presence than just its physical nature. So of course I've been thinking about this for a few days, weeks, months now. I happened across a video yesterday, and as often happens, sometimes I feel like the universe is telling me, hey, it's time for you to move on this. Well, I saw this video about archetypes. Now, they were talking about archetypes for film, for writing stories, building up on these sort of Jungian archetypes, the Joseph Campbell Hero with 1,000 Faces type stuff, and the heroic journey type archetypes. And I watched the video, it was quite good. And I looked down and they had some links to the author's book that he wasn't reading from directly, but was basically paraphrasing. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I think I have that book. And sure enough, I do. It was Christopher Vogler talking on the Film Courage YouTube channel, and he was talking about these mythic archetypes, and sure enough, there it is, his mythic, his book called The Writer's Journey, Mythic Structure for Writers. I bought, goodness, 11 or 12, I think 12 years ago now. So I thought this might be a good starting point and the subject for this particular video. We could go through some of these basic archetypes, some pulled from him. I think almost all of them pulled from him, and the one of them I think I just pulled from sort of just a kind of Jungian archetypes. and think about how we might be able to deploy those into our wilderness. This is going to be fairly high level. I'm not going to go into super depth on each one of them, but I hope this will give us ideas, because that's really what I want to do, is I want to give you inspiration. I want to give you ideas so that when you are faced with describing wilderness or just inventing wilderness, you can lean on some of these tools and think about, well, this will help me create more interesting places, or this will help me just flat out create places, because if I just think of creating 30, 60, however many square miles of woods, I can't do it. These might help you. So let's go through some of these archetypes. Now, one archetype is the mother. I've sort of made it genderless into the parent, and that's all about nurturing. And of course, if you think as a parental figure, what would nurturing mean? It might be sort of helping one grow, helping one maybe heal might be something. I think that's in terms of a person, but we can also think in terms of places. I think we have plenty of examples we can find in fiction of folks running across pools, ponds, mushrooms, all kinds of different things in a wilderness or even a dungeon setting. Mushrooms, I think in Wonderland, right? She's in the, well, actually that's in the wilderness. In Wonderland, she runs across the mushrooms, but that would probably also apply to the drink me, eat me type stuff. Nurturing, helping us to grow. You could think about, well, if I needed some inspiration for some woodlands, maybe I'll roll some dice. I'll create a table of these archetypes. I hit parent, I think of nurture. What might be nurturing here? Maybe there is a pool of clear water that helps will heal characters of their wounds. And you can also try to reverse these and think about what would the opposite of that kind of nurturing, maybe something more destructive, and you can play with that as well. The second archetype is that mentor. A mentor is someone who teaches you, right? You think about in terms of stories, the Obi-Wan to Luke. He's Luke's mentor. He teaches Luke about the Force. If you think about in terms of places can also teach, especially if the lessons you can learn in maybe a safe space in the wilderness can then be applied further on. If you think about, for example, there's a deadly swamp and there are fumes that come out of the swamp, and if you don't deal with the fumes, they're going to kill you. Maybe there's an area you can go to that has a diluted version of these fumes, and if the players learn to deal with this diluted version that's not going to kill them, then when they get to the swamps where this is a real mortal concern, they will be prepared. That area served this purpose of teaching them something. Next archetype is a shapeshifter. The shapeshifter is a creature or be a character who has several masks. It'll be one that you might have different, it might shift from different archetype to different archetype. And part of the puzzle is, in the case of a literary, say, use of the shapeshifter, is for the hero to determine, well, who is this creature exactly? They are my mentor in some hands, but then I look at them and now they're maybe being a shadow, which is sort of villainous aspect. Which one are they? Is it one? Is it the other? Is it something else? So this is one you can use if you wanted to have, in a sense, it kind of goes hand in hand with the one I'll get to later called the trickster. But the concept is that it's the puzzle. Is this helpful? Is this harmful? How do we figure that out? It's not obvious, right? If the glade that nurtures you and brings you back to health is just this obvious good thing, maybe there's something that's murkier. Maybe it shifts. Maybe it's got some aspects that are good, some aspects that are bad, and you have to figure out how to maneuver through there. From there we get to the shadow, which is your sort of villainous, your main villain archetype. It's with the character, it's sort of a dark reflection of the hero. In terms of the wilderness, it can be a dark reflection of the terrain that it's in. So, for example, a shadow version of the woods is a very dark, foreboding woods. Maybe where you think of a forest that's beautiful and full of light and energy and everything. Well, think about what the inverse of that would be: a very dark place, maybe even actively trying to destroy things that enter into it. That would be sort of the shadow. The guardian is a creature that tries to deny. It's a thing that the character has to overcome. The hero has to surpass guardians to get onto the next levels of their adventure. In the same way, guardian terrain, a guardian area in the wilderness, would be one that is denying passage forward. And it's that classic obstacle that the party has to overcome to get somewhere. So if you think about an area and you think about, okay, it's a guardian area, area, then getting through there is the challenge. It may be passively, maybe actively trying to prevent creatures from passing through. And then you can think about what kinds of, depending on the terrain, what sort of challenges might qualify to make this a guardian. The next archetype is the trickster. This is your classic in sort of Native American mythos. You have the coyote and sometimes owls and ravens and these things they're always looking to trick, to fool. You think about mirages in the desert when we get in terms of places, things that look one way but are something else, things that are trying to fool the party. The poppies that are the field of poppies, it looks beautiful in The Wizard of Oz, but of course as they run into the poppies, it puts them to sleep. That would be a trick. It seems harmless, it seems wonderful, it seems like we're almost there, and it turns into this horrible situation. The ally is an archetype who aids the hero. You can look at, okay, well, we had the nurturing, we had the teaching, isn't that kind of aid? Sure, there's going to be overlap. So if you want to think about how you might want to differentiate those, it could be in terms of information. Maybe in this area, there's something that they can see to help them. Maybe there'll be a tool there that they can take with them to help them. In any case, here's a place where they can get aid. Maybe even there's an NPC that lives in this particular part of the wilderness that can be an aid to the party. And then the final one is the herald, which is all about delivering messages. Now this might be one you think, well, how do I do this in the wilderness? Well, perhaps like I just said with the herald, or like I just said with the ally, maybe it isn't the wilderness itself, maybe it's something that's contained in the wilderness, but you can also think about ruins, structures, monuments, things that might, just like an ally that might have aid through what they're saying, but also might declare messages. And we can think broadly of what a message might be, perhaps even a marker that shows the boundaries of some kind of border would be a message in effect, because it's saying you have arrived at the border. So we need to think broadly, think metaphorically about what a message might be. Now that you have these, I think these are, how many of these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that you have these 8 archetypes, we can put them in a table. You can just think what makes the most sense for this space. But hopefully as you think about these, they'll give you inspiration. If you come across woods, you say, oh, these woods are a shapeshifter. What does that mean? Okay, let me look at some positive, negative aspects, and then I can play around with sometimes. Maybe it's with day and night cycle. Oh, it's so beautiful during the day, and then at night it's super deadly. Well, which is it? Is the beauty a lie? Is the deadliness not accurate? What is it? And then it becomes a puzzle. Okay, it's a guardian. What in these woods might be the obstacle that the party has to overcome? It could be something deep ravines that the party has trouble crossing, or a large lake or a river, or it could be that the trees are moving, could be that the paths seem to disappear, it could be that there's some creatures in the wilderness. The idea with these is, of course, always not to be locked in, but just to see where this inspiration takes you. And you can use these archetypes to give mythic resonance to your wilderness, which I think will make them more interesting for you as a GM to develop and to speak about, because now it's more than just some woods. These are the shadow woods. What does that mean? Oh, I'm already thinking about what monsters might be there, how this might even interact with my campaign. Maybe the big bad guy needs to go to some shadow woods because that's where the dark powers are strongest, where they can do their evil deed. Maybe that all of a sudden that fits into what I'm doing. But then ultimately, as it is giving me ideas and giving me energy, giving me inspiration, it's going to shine through to your party and make the wilderness a more interesting place. And as your party begins to understand these things, maybe they can even look for it. Maybe understanding that there are parts of the wilderness that are nurturing, perhaps one of them picks up a disease or a curse or some other effect, and sure, they could try to find a priest or a cleric of a high level to do that, but maybe another option is to go to some natural place and find one of these healing pools or a certain plant that can heal them. Get me my Athelas, my king's foil. Maybe they can find that as well, and then that can start to feed into the adventures themselves. Hope that was helpful. Let me know if you use these. I think I'll have more because I got a lot more. I didn't get all of it, but game on. Talk to you later.